which I find extremely strange. Rankings. They're not everything. My flatmate was actually doing international management at Imperial, and so we actually cross-checked a lot of the things that we were doing. And hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. This is Clouds. In my previous LBS Q&A video, quite a few of you guys actually requested for me to do a comparison video between the MIM at LBS with other schools in London. So that is what I'm doing today due to popular demand. So I think most people who do watch my videos are interested in the Masters in Management program. This is also the most popular program that is out there in terms of business schools or in terms of people who are just finishing undergrad. So I am only going to be talking about Masters in Management programs. The schools I'm going to be talking about specifically in this video are London Business School, London School of Economics, Imperial College London, and UCL, so University College London. Those are the four universities I'm going to be comparing in this video. The reason why I chose these schools in particular is because when I was applying for Masters in Management, I did not want to go abroad. I did not want to go do a Masters in Management in France, for example, in HEC Paris. I wanted to stay in London, so these are the schools I looked at. I actually only really looked at LBS, LSE, and Imperial, but I thought it would be good to add in UCL as well, because I did see some people mention it in my comments, and I know that they do have a Masters in Management program as well. So if you guys do like this kind of content and want to continue seeing this kind of content, please do leave a like down below to signal to me that yes, you do in fact like this content and do in fact want to see more of it. So yes, just to let me know, I would like to know to see if I'm wasting my time on these videos or not. So I do have a lot of information here, and it is going to be a long video, but I thought that was important because I do want to give you guys the most exhaustive and extensive set of information possible, because I think it's very important to make a well-educated decision on which school to choose for, especially now that you're at a master's stage. To give you guys a quick list of contents, this whole video is going to be split into three main categories, and those are the general overview, the requirements, and the ranking. So those are the three things I'm going to be comparing, and within these categories I have smaller subcategories. So within general overview, I'm going to be comparing tuition, duration, employability, the program itself, and the amount of travel or hands-on experiences. Secondly, within the requirements category, I'm going to be comparing the GMAT/GRE requirements, the essay requirements, the one-page CV requirements, English language requirements, references requirements, and the minimum requirements, the minimum grade requirements. Lastly, within the ranking category, I'm going to be comparing rankings. I'm going to be comparing the MIM ranking with each other, with FT and QS. I'm also going to be comparing the different business management study rankings that there are out there, and I did include the global MBA ranking because I do think that this affects, to an extent, the level and the prestigiousness of the Masters in Management program as well. So I will leave timestamps for all these categories down below on the comment section, so you can just click it and go straight to that part. But I will recommend to watch the whole video just because I don't think one criteria is enough to compare all these four different schools. There are so many different dimensions to making a decision like which master schools to go to, so I really do recommend you to watch the whole video. That is the minimum you can do to make sure you're well informed in this decision process. So yeah, without further ado, I know this has been a very long intro. Let's just get straight into the first category. So the first category we have is general overview. For the tuition, LBS is actually the most expensive out of all four schools. So LBS is 3,300. That is wrong. Am I really a business major? I'm gonna work in a consulting firm and I don't know how to say this number. Okay, so for LBS it is £33,600. It is the most expensive out of this list, and 33,000 honestly is a lot for a 12-month program. To premise, I did not pay this much. Firstly, the tuition last year was cheaper than this. It was around 32,000, so it did increase. And I think that the program kind of increases its tuition every year. Yeah, so if you're thinking of doing the Masters in Management program at LBS, do it whenever you can, because I do think that tuition really does increase every year. So for LSE, the tuition is 32,184. That is such a random number. Like, are those £4 gonna make a difference? That is the second most expensive in the list. For Imperial College, the tuition is 29,500, which is the cheapest on the list, and UCL comes in third, which is 30,400. So yeah, they all kind of hover around the 30,000 mark, LBS being the most expensive, Imperial being the cheapest. I would say the cost of the Masters in Management does play an important factor into which school you go into. It is very, very costly, and you need to make sure that there's a cost benefit analysis there and you get a good return on investment. So this does matter and will and should affect your decision. Going into the duration of the program, they're pretty much all 12 months, except for LBS, where you do have the choice to do a fourth term. So it's 12 or 16 months if you do opt to do a fourth term. Moving on to employability, which to me at the time was the one most important factor in making my decision as to which school I should go to. Employability to me really was the pillar of my decision. This was actually quite hard to compare because for some reason LSE and UCL don't have like a MIM employability report, which I find extremely strange. I mean, Masters in Management programs usually are coterminous to employability and networking and all of those aspects of finding a job. Whether it is to change your career trajectory, whether it is to find where you want to go into and perhaps you don't know that yet, or to just propel yourself into a career that perhaps before you weren't able to get into. That is, for me, the main function of a Masters in Management. So the fact that LSE and UCL, at least to my understanding, do not have an employability report is very odd. But let's just go from the start. So LBS does have an employability report, and if you guys are thinking of applying, please download the report and go through all the numbers. It lists out all the companies that all students got into. It lists out the median salary of students when they first get a job. It lists out everything that you need to know in terms of recruitment and applications. So LBS, the report delineates a 94% of the students who get a job within 3 months of graduation. So even though LSE does not have an employability report for the Masters in Management program, it does have a prospectus for the Management Graduate Department, which is where the Masters in Management program is in. So this is pretty good reflection of the employability for the Masters in Management at LSE. And here it says that 89% of postgraduate leavers from the management department were in employment, completing further study or taking time out just 6 months after graduation. So yeah, there we have it. That's 89% of students get a job or take time out after 6 months of graduation. Moving on to Imperial, I did get some information and pretty comparative to LBS because it's also within 3 months. The number that they gave us is 91% of students. So 91% of students in the student body in the Masters in Management program specifically gets a job or get a placement within 3 months of graduation. So UCL, actually I could not find any numbers on this. I even tried to look for employability rates for the school overall, but I was unable to find specific numbers that were reliable, so it's just NA. But I would say UCL is quite a well-known school in London, and I think even internationally it has a very global name, so I would say you're in pretty good hands, I would say. But again, I don't have any numbers to back up that argument, so take my words with a grain of salt. Moving on to the program itself, this has a lot of different information, so I'm just going to give you guys the most basic information, which is how many core subjects you can take and how many electives you can take. So I do think that knowing how many electives you're able to choose is quite an important thing that can affect one's decision, because if you're coming into the Masters in Management program knowing that you perhaps want to specialize within finance, or you want to specialize in consulting, strategy, marketing, data analytics, for example, you can then tailor the program to your needs and tailor the program to your academic preferences. To me, that wasn't a very important factor. I don't think I even looked at it, or I might have looked at it, but I didn't take it into consideration. So it depends, it's individual from person to person, but here's information if you need it. So for LBS, the program consists of 15 core modules and then 3 to 4 electives, depending on which ones you choose and how many credits they have. For LSE, we have 8 core modules and 2 optional electives. For Imperial College, we have 8 core modules and 4 electives. And then UCL, there's 9 core modules and 1 optional elective. So the last subcategory within general overview is travel/hands-on experience. So at LBS, you get to do, first of all, a GIFT, which is the acronym for Global Immersion Field Trip. And basically you get to go on a field trip abroad, and there's a variety of different locations that you can choose from. And you go there, do a business project with a real business and provide real solutions that they do then implement into their strategy. So we have that, which unfortunately I was not able to do because of COVID-19. And then we also have the London Lab, which is a program that lasts for 5 weeks, and you're able to work with a real-life company again and work on a consultancy project. So I worked with Accenture this year with a team of 12 people, and we provided a pitch, a whole-on presentation, and you know, it was a really valuable experience. At LSE, the website, I don't know why the website did not give me any information on any sort of additional things that the program involves itself in. So I only really got a list of, you know, the electives that they have and the list of the core electives. And I tried to dig up this information and I couldn't find it. So perhaps LSE doesn't have any sort of, you know, abroad programs. Imperial does have abroad programs. I know this for a fact because my flatmate was actually doing international management at Imperial. And so we actually cross-checked a lot of the things that we were doing, and most of it was very similar. So she had a trip as well to Brazil, I believe, and they had different choices of destinations as well, and she chose Brazil. And they also have a consulting project just like we have one at LBS. At UCL, you also have a thing called consultancy project, and I think as well is when you get the chance to work with a real-life company and provide solutions that they then implement. And there's something else called International Summer School, which I believe is something you can do over the summer before you graduate abroad, which gives you the chance to travel. So the International Summer School at UCL is also somewhat of an exchange program, so you do get to explore other schools throughout the summer period, and all the schools that they listed were very reputable and very high-ranked schools around the world. And also at UCL, which I thought was extremely interesting, was the fact that you do get the choice to choose 2 different pathways. So either the corporate or the finance pathway. And I think that's why they only have 1 optional elective for you to choose, because before you apply, you already make the decision of whether you want to go down the corporate route or you want to go down the finance route. So yeah, that is very interesting, and it might be a better choice for some people who are, you know, quite interested in making a very specific decision but still want to have a management degree. So going on to my second category, we're going to look at the requirements for applying to these 4 different schools. And not gonna lie, the requirements are very similar. They only have minor changes here and there, but ultimately they're virtually the same thing. So let's just go, you know, for LBS, you need to have a GMAT or a GRE. This is obligatory. This is a requirement. If you do not hand in a standardized test, you cannot get in unless you get a GMAT waiver or a GRE waiver, which I have talked about in my previous video, so please check it out. But if you guys do want a whole video about the GMAT or the GRE, then do let me know. I can make a whole video about it. For LBS also, we have the essays, we have the 1-page CV, English language requirements, 2 referees, and 2-1 minimum, or the equivalent to a 2-1. I have talked about these different requirements very extensively in my How I Got Into LBS video, so if you guys do want any further details on this, please check out this video. For LSE, you actually only need a GMAT or GRE score if you did not do your degree in the UK. So if you're coming from abroad and you did your undergraduate degree at another school, you have to do a GMAT or a GRE. Unfortunately, the next requirement is something that they call a statement of academic purpose, and I'm assuming that is just a, you know, an essay or some sort of a, you know, personal statement. You have to submit a CV as well. You need to do your English language requirements, either the TOEFL or the IELTS. What the TOEFL or the EI? Oh my! You have to do your English language requirements as well, so that's either the TOEFL or the IELTS, and you also need 2 references and a 2-1 minimum grade. For Imperial, the GMAT or the GRE is actually not required, but if you do have it, it can help your application. But this is huge because a lot of people applying to business schools or masters in management, they do not want to do the GMAT or the GRE because it's so time consuming and it takes a lot of effort to actually sit the exam. And not only that, but it can actually be quite costly, especially if you have to sit the exam multiple times. So Imperial does not require the GMAT or the GRE. Then it has these things called the career planning questions, which I'm assuming is equivalent to the essays at LBS, asking you what you foresee for your long-term future. You have to, of course, submit a CV, the English language requirements, a personal statement. So that is not the same as the career planning questions. It's a personal statement above the CV and above the career planning questions, and then the 2 references, and of course the 2-1 grade. Lastly, for UCL, it's the same as Imperial. You don't need a GMAT or GRE score, but if you have it, it can help your application. And then everything else is the exact same as Imperial. You have your essays, you have to submit a CV, English language requirements, a personal statement, 2 references, and a 2-1 minimum requirement grade. So yeah, I would say for the requirements, the one thing that does change quite drastically from school to school is the GMAT and the GRE requirements. One thing people stress out about when applying to some B schools is doing the GMAT and the GRE. So the fact that Imperial and UCL don't require you to sit one, and LSE doesn't require you to sit one if you come from a UK university, that can be, quite a big characteristic that you take into account when applying to these 4 different schools. The last category that I'm going to be talking about is rankings. And before I even go into this category, I do want to premise that rankings, they're not everything. Listen, I've been there, okay? I've been that person searching up rankings, Financial Times rankings, university rankings, top universities in the UK, top universities in the world. I've done all those searches, and to me before, it was so important that a school ranked high. I'm not gonna lie and sit here and tell you that it doesn't matter to me anymore, because if I was to apply to an MBA right now, I'll probably still look at the rankings, let's be honest, but I at least understand that there are so many other factors that are a lot more important than rankings, and that rankings is only one factor within a plethora of different things that matter when choosing where to pursue an education. Also, the way the people that calculate these rankings, who knows what goes into these rankings? This is actually so arbitrary. You don't know the research and you don't know the different criteria that people are looking at to build these rankings. A lot of it is, in fact, driven by money and reputation. So it is actually very misconstrued to completely trust these rankings. Please do not take them too seriously, okay? Yes, they're important. Yes, they affected my decision, and they will continue to affect my decisions if I am going to apply to different schools, but they won't make or break my decisions. Now that we have that out of the way, so the first ranking that we're going to be comparing is the Masters in Management rankings by the QS 2020, QS World Rankings. If you guys don't know, I'm going to read out their Wikipedia page to give you guys more context as to why you should trust what they say. Let me read it out to you. Being the only international ranking to have received International Ranking Expert Group approval, the QS ranking is viewed as one of the 3 most widely read university rankings in the world, along with Academic Ranking of World Universities and Times Higher Education World University Rankings. So yeah, it is pretty prestigious, pretty well-known ranking publication. And for the 2020 Masters in Management Program rankings, LBS ranked number 2, LSE ranked number 7, Imperial ranked number 5, and UCL wasn't on the list. Where's my girl UCL? Where is she? She has to be on the list because I saw so many different schools on the list. She wasn't on the list, but I'm sure she should be on the list. The next ranking we have, again, is the Masters in Management ranking by the FT, Financial Times. She's very popular. She don't need no introduction, okay? I only found 2009 rankings, but they probably should be very, very similar to 2020 rankings. But for 2019, FT ranked LBS number 3. LSE wasn't on the list. Imperial was number 14, and UCL was not on the list. Maybe these Masters in Management rankings are pretty much predominantly European schools, which is why LSE and UCL are not showing up. So which is why I included another ranking here. We have the QS World Rankings by subject, and I chose Business and Management Studies. So within business and management departments, how do different schools rank in comparison worldwide? For 2020, LBS is ranked at number 3 in the world. Number 10, we have LSE. Imperial ranks at number 24, and UCL is in a range, so it's ranking from 51 to 100. It doesn't tell me which position it is. I think after number 51, they're just like, whatever, you guys figure it out. It's somewhere between 51 and 100, and I'm like, well, thanks, this is not very useful, is it? Or QS World Rankings. I will link all of these lists down below so you guys can cross-check it for yourselves. Lastly, in this rankings category, I included the global MBA ranking as well. Because networking is such an imperative part of a Master's in Management program, who you're networking with is going to be, again, very important. If the MBA in these schools ranks very highly, then the MIM has a lot to gain from this, because the students that you'll be meeting, the people who will be interacting in campus, will be essentially, you know, up there. They'll be very, very successful individuals who are coming to the school to do really great things in the future, and who will really provide much value to your future career progress. By QS 2020, LBS ranks number 6. LSE does not have a full MBA, so did not include LSE in this global MBA ranking. Imperial does have an MBA, and it ranks number 19, and UCL is not in these rankings. And I checked whether or not they have an MBA, and they do. They have an MBA in collaboration with Beijing University, I think. But I think their MBA is a little bit of a hybrid, which is why it's not like a standalone program that is known underneath the UCL name brand. So I did not include them, and I couldn't really find much information on their MBA. The global MBA ranking by the FT in 2020, LBS ranked number 7 in the world, and Imperial ranked number 55 in the world. So yeah, that wraps up all the 3 categories that are very important to making a decision, and hopefully those 3 categories gave you guys some insight as to what I thought about when I was applying to these schools. And actually something that is also extremely important, but I can't quantify, so I can't really do a comparison, is brand name and brand reputation. So when we looked at rankings just now, LBS was pretty much leading in all of the rankings, but when you look at the reputations of these schools in itself, I'll say Imperial, UCL, and LSE all have stronger names than LBS, especially if it's just in the UK. Virtually no one around me knew. 15分钟吧. I have like my cousins here, and they want me to go play in the pool with them, which is why they're trying to rush me. So yeah, if this video sounds rushed, you can blame them. As I was saying, brand reputation really matters as well when applying to these schools, because it is going to affect your employability rates and how your CV is perceived and how employers will look at your credentials. When I got into London Business School, a lot of people didn't know, actually virtually no one around me knew what this school was. My friends actually kept on getting it confused with CAS, like CAS Business School, even though they don't sound like each other. My friends just didn't know about it. And that is because if you're not in the business field, I think the school is not as well known, because it's specifically just for business students and business majors. It is a B school in itself. It doesn't have any other courses that you can take, and also it is only a postgraduate school. So when people apply to undergraduate schools, they will never come across LBS because it is only a postgraduate school, which is why the brand name isn't as strong, and people don't know LBS as much as they will know LSE, for example. And I think when I was applying to Masters in Management, that was one thing that I was really trying to weigh out, because all the rankings told me that LBS was a better school, or not better school, but LBS, you know, ranked higher. But then on the other hand, everyone knew LSE, everyone knew Imperial, but no one knew LBS. So I think that was one trade-off I had to make, is am I going to choose the reputation and the brand name, or am I going to choose the rankings and the networks, etc. I think in terms of what my priorities were, which was number 1, the networks I was going to make, number 2, my employability chances, I'm very happy I chose LBS. Just to give you guys a personal example, I did get a full-time job offer like 6 months before I even graduated. So that to me makes it seem like my decision was a good decision. I'm super biased, which is why I wanted to give you guys objective information, which is why I listed down these things that I researched on, to make sure that I'm giving you guys unbiased, unskewed information. But you know, now just talking about my personal experience, of course, and also my flatmate, as I mentioned, she went to Imperial to do a master's in international management, and in many ways I did see how her program was better than mine. Essentially, all these 4 courses are going to be very great, but just choose one that you think will fit your priorities and fit what you want out of a program. I did try to make this video as impartial as possible, obviously excluding all my personal experiences that I mentioned. Those are just examples that I think are good to know if you're thinking of applying to LBS, but all the information, all the comparisons that I made were completely impartial. They're just things that I found on the internet, copy pasted it to a Word document and regurgitated all the information back to you. Yeah, so that is it for today. Hopefully this was useful and helpful, and as always, do let me know in the comments down below what other kind of content you guys would like to see. Leave in any questions you would like me to answer. I have been pretty good at answering questions, I'd say. Lastly, please give it a big like and subscribe to the video below, please. It would really help, and it would, you know, provide a reflection that you guys do want to continue seeing this kind of content. So yes, see you guys in the next video, and bye bye.